Mojo Monday, Rick Hale. How are you?
I'm awesome. Happy Mojo Monday, Brett.
It is obviously our favorite day of the week, and we love this. And it's exciting. We wrapped up some pretty cool series around your book and other books over the past, and we're kind of just saying, what's the next topic, right? And I was telling you, I said, I think it's storytelling. And it's that, what is the power of storytelling, which a little bit about your book, right? Because your book was a collection of stories. Yet I think sometimes you got to be a great story receiver before you ever learn how to be a great storyteller. And that kind of takes me back to grade school. I remember sitting around as a elementary student in the library, we had to like sit on carpet squares or something, and the teacher's reading us a story out of a book, and that vivid imagination that the young kid brings to that moment is such a powerful part of life, right? What do you make of this?
Yeah, I mean, those experiences, teleporters back in time. And depending on I guess, the energy behind the story and how it matches up with where you are and what you're feeling in that moment, that's the resonant energy that has carrying power or staying power.
Yeah.
And so there's nothing like a great story, and there's nothing quite like, all of the descriptions that go into it that create a rich visual. And the real storytellers, I think the best of the best, can do this without visual aids and without, they
Yeah.
literally
Mouth.
shape shift into
Yeah.
your mind, into your eyes, what the words are conveying. And that's a gift.
Oh, 100%. And, it's not just a book either. Like, I think it's just verbal communication. It could be a song. It could be a book. It could be a presentation you listen to or a movie. Like, they're all stories, yet sometimes you get moved by them, right? And have you ever listened to a song that incited emotion inside of you?
Yeah, of course. I mean, there's
Yeah.
countless songs that when you hear, but for me, not only, I think part of it is in the season that I was in, that story resonated. Like Don't Stop Believing was a big song when I was in high school. And, the world is your oyster and the opportunities abound, and so much unknown when you're at that age. It just resonated. And what's cool is it's kind of become a timeless anthem, and everybody knows it, the Journey song. So yeah, not only the words, but the energy of the song. And then it literally
I
goes
don't know
back
that
in.
song. Will you sing it?
That's a trick. No, I should have picked somebody who sings with a more gruff voice, like Scatman
Oh,
Crothers or something. But
but
yeah,
honestly, I
Steve
do know
Perry is
that
not the
song.
guy to try to sing. Just saying, if
Yeah,
you're not a vocalist.
but I do know that song, and that song is a story that I even remember, right? And we've got a little bit of an age gap, not a lot, but that song came out at a different period of my life than it did in your life, right? And think
100%.
about the kids that grow up now that are hearing it, and they still have a different feeling around that same song. And if that doesn't kind of tell the power of great storytelling, right? Or a movie or any of those things, right? Like I think about there's certain movies that if it was on today, I almost said flipping channels. We don't do that anymore. But if it was on today, I'd watch it, right? Like Rudy
Of course.
is a killer movie in my storytelling background, or as I receive stories, because I find it incites emotion inside of me, Rick, and I connect with it, right? And it's that story of the underdog.
Yeah, 100%. If it's gonna have memorable energy, it's got to have emotion attached. And the word motion, by the way, is in the word emotion. If there's no emotional context to a conversation or relationship or a moment with somebody, or even in watching a movie over the long run, now every moment may not be emotion filled, but if there's not, peaks and valleys that carry you through it with energy that is emotionally driven, it's probably going to be quickly forgotten. And, I think about movies like Hook and Mrs. Doubtfire, and I grew up in kind of a broken home scenario, and Mrs. Doubtfire was like my freaking hero. And it just resonated because I could teleport into, that experience and see myself in that story, which is a whole nother level of effective storytelling. And to some degree, I think everybody has moments where, they wish their parents would, do whatever it took to honor them above all else, which was the Robin Williams character. And Hook, another one of those, it takes you back to what would it be, a swashbuckling kid,
Yeah.
good against evil, my tribe against your tribe of bad.
Follow me. Yeah.
Yeah, right. To the plank, no less. But that's what great storytelling really is. And to kind of push the conversation forward, you're like, what's the gift that storytellers have in general that those that don't tell effective, emotion-rich stories fail or miss? What's the opportunity missed?
Yeah. I mean, the opportunity missed, but I think as adults, we kind of tame this part of our brain down, or you know what I mean? Like Dr. Seuss wrote a book, I think it's called and to Think That I Saw It on Mulberry Street, right? And it talks about that vivid imagination of a young child. And it's actually the adult in their life that pulls that imagination down and kind of softens the story. But yet, I think we all are that inner child that wants to live out vivid imagination and vivid stories, yet we allow ourselves to tame them in a way. And I think it's kind of a sad thing, but at the same time, somebody asked me a few weeks ago, they said, "Hey, Brett, are you living a life that's story worthy?" And I thought it kind of hit me in a weird way. And I thought, yeah, sometimes I am. And sometimes my life may look a little routine or boring. And maybe I need to spice it up a little bit, or go do something that creates an experience or creates a story that I can tell. And hopefully the collection of those stories might make it into a book like you did in your life, right? What do you think about that?
Well, there's a few thoughts that float around in my head. Two popped in. One was, I think the minute anyone on this planet decides they want to write a book one day or tell a story one day, they start to treat life differently, and their subconscious brain starts to absorb information and circumstances differently. The minute you commit that this next week, month, or year is going to be worthy of at least a page, a sentence, a chapter, you're going to probably fight for the better version of you to be worthy of that. And that's a much better pursuit than, watching the rap sheet on the news and trying to process out why the murders and, robberies and all the crazy things that happen you can't control, that don't elevate a better level of conscious awareness around the good things, or things that frankly are hilarious, amusing, unbelievable. Like there's stuff everywhere happening around you that are worthy of, you're in it. Why not craft it, document, and create a story? It may or may not make the book, but when your conscious mind says it wants to seek out things, it's going to
Yeah.
go find those things. So that's part of it. The other thing is, I tell you this, and I just had a wonderful weekend coaching some teenagers. They were 14 to 22. So a few of them in the room were slightly beyond teen. But the thing that I remember saying that stood out was, I looked at them, I'm like, you're looking at a 57-year-old and you probably think we're different. We are, because of my experiential path and the things that I've learned and failed and tried and achieved. But reality is, we're all kids inside, man. I still have a 14-year-old and a 22-year-old that screams for attention and opportunity and being liked and appreciated. And I want to impress the right people. And that's just a human condition.
Yeah.
And so I spent a weekend. So in layering that with one more experience, I spent a weekend with Jeff Hoffman, who was the founder of Priceline. He's a billionaire. And I donated to a charity and got to go to this weekend retreat with 25 really cool guys. And we blistered him with questions. And he said the secret to having a really big life and leveling up or coming up with a creative product or a creative perspective is to stop looking at it through the lens of an adult, and to go back to that childlike curiosity where you ask, well, why is that? Why does that exist? And not taking things for granted and assuming the norm is the norm when it may or may not be. And
Yeah.
so I think part of this storytelling thing is to teleport back as a child and like look at things differently, because, they say, that if you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. I'm sitting there thinking about this song Sting sings called Every Breath You Take, or something like that. And I remember when I first heard that song, I actually thought he was singing about a girl or singing about somebody he loved, right? And he was singing about this these obsessive thoughts, I guess he had about this person. And somebody told me later on, like, no, he's thinking about somebody stalking him. And I thought, well, that's not what I got out of the story the first time. Like, I heard in that song what I think I wanted to hear, not what the song was really about. And, you know, that really kind of goes to the point of great storytelling. Like, if you can sing a great song or tell a great story so great that they kind of see themselves inside of it, they create their own paradigm out of your story. And you know, we're in the real estate industry, so you know, we're always trying to help people make great decisions about buying and selling real estate. If we're using great stories and we're a great storyteller, they actually see themselves inside of that story to make a great decision, right? And I
Yeah.
know we're probably going to push the conversation around practical great storytelling to next week, yet that really speaks to the power of great storytelling, right?
Well, there's got to be an element of relatability. And for it to be relatable, they have to see your story as their story. Maybe not exactly, but they have to be able to at least imagine that if circumstances were different or timing was different, there is possibility that that could have been their scripted scenario. And then it becomes real. And there's a saying that no one denies their own truth. And truth lies into their adaptive connectivity to the story.
Yeah.
That's their truth. And it doesn't matter if Sting's lyrics were, you know, intended for, you know, somebody stalking him, which this is new information. So I'm going to
I'll
go,
send you a
I'm going to
link.
go fact check you. But
Yes.
I always thought it was somebody, you know, like some special love, like every breath
That's the
you take,
important.
every
That's
move
why
you
it's
make,
powerful.
I'll be watching you. Like, I thought it was love, man. That's creepy.
That's why it affected me weird, because I thought it was something different. Point made, right?
So timing matters, the framing of your story matters, and the way it connects the dots but behind your purpose in the mission you're on matters. So that's a whole nother chapter, but
Yes.
nonetheless, wow.
So
It goes to show the
cool
power of emotion, though.
conversation. Cool conversation today, Rick. But what would you hope somebody takes from this conversation?
I think step one is just to realize we're all absolute miracles. The fact that you're alive, I'm alive. Like it's in the book. I actually went and researched what the odds are of you being born. It's like 48,368,393 something. And so that alone makes you worthy of a story, your very existence. And I think there's someone right now that needs to hear your story, or that you need to be a part of their story. And being intentional and being aware, and just, I'm not saying go do anything different today. I'm saying be open up the lens to the potential that maybe your story is a bigger, more impactful experience for someone else in need than you give it credit for. And take a moment, take a few deep breaths, and feel awesome about what you've done so far. And then let that organic energy take you to the next question, because it's all about answering questions.
You know, I love that. I would hope somebody would take the comment around, are you living a life that's worthy of a story? And what I mean by that is, if you think your life is a straight line timeline, that you're just living what it's supposed to be, and you don't have the opportunity to have some highs and some lows that are story worthy, you're missing the richness of life. And I think that's a good reminder to all of us, me included, Rick, that hey, sometimes we if we just let life happen, we miss great stories. Sometimes we have to go create them.
Yeah. Well, and it's in the failure that the story resonates greatest. When I teach and share stories, the ones I feel like people really attach to at the highest level are the ones that were probably around serious trauma, serious fail, and then that underdog, that Rudy moment, that, okay, now what, so what, or so what, now what?
Yeah.
And here's how I, you know, grabbed bootstrap and kept swinging. And, you know, so everybody's had failures and setbacks. In fact, I would speculate the people that aren't sure they're worthy of a story think they're not worthy because they haven't achieved at the highest level, where I think the real story is in how low have you gone and how high can you climb, and what does that experience look like, so that someone where you are could one day be where you're headed.
Absolutely. There you go, Rick. Mojo Monday, sir. See you next week.
See you next week.
All right.